Now, did anyone sign the anti-gerrymandering constitutional amendment petition last year? Awesome. Wow. Great. So, I don't have to tell many of the people here that we have a Secretary of State in Ohio who, for the last 6 years, has doubled down on gerrymandering, disenfranchising millions of Ohioans, Democrats and Republicans alike. And we have a Secretary of State who now twice has used ballot language to put his thumb on the scale so that he could get his way rather than let Ohio voters just get their way. And we have a Secretary of State who every chance he gets makes it a little bit harder for people to vote, especially people he doesn't think are likely to vote for him. That's what we've got. But if getting together a year and a half out from a Secretary of State race is about anything, it has to be about imagining a better democracy in Ohio. And so all of us need to imagine an Ohio where our districts are drawn by an independent commission, not by politicians themselves. This is done in other states. It works. This is not pie in the sky. Number two, we need to imagine Ohio where ballot language is honest and you can understand what you're voting on in plain English when you go in to vote. And we need to imagine Ohio where it is easy and fair for every Ohio citizen to vote. Now, my first political experience is my first run for any public office. I was 8 years old, and a Vegas casino company put a riverboat casino referendum on the small rural county ballot where I grew up. I grew up on a small family farm, and my mother was active in anti-poverty work in our county. And she and her friends thought that a riverboat casino wouldn't draw people from the coast. It would cause poverty to get worse in our small town. And so the Vegas Casino Company puts $1 million into this ballot. My mom and the local Methodist church ladies raised $7,000 to oppose the riverboat casino. I, at 8, got to watch door to door as Mom had these conversations with her neighbors and her friends. And at 8, for 3 months, I didn't meet anybody who was for the riverboat, and so I thought we were going to win for sure. And I still remember me and my 2 brothers and my mom and dad going down to the courthouse and hearing the results that the casino had passed. And I remember looking across that small rural courthouse and seeing the 3 three-piece suit consultants for the casino company. And I remember being mad. Mad that I knew they'd be on the first flight out in the morning and they would never come back to our small town. Mad that they had bought that election. Mad that our community had fell for it. That's how gerrymandering makes me feel. Not like any of us lost something fair and square, but like we were undermined from the beginning. Now, I believe that government has to be where we do together what none of us can do alone. Build great schools, safe roads, and a healthcare system that I passionately believe should be universal, simple, and affordable. Now I get, despite the amazing turnout for this event, thanks to everyone who organized it, that this is going to be hard statewide in Ohio. You know, I've been a part of really hard fights before, building teams for hard fights before. When I came to the University of Cincinnati as a leukemia doctor in 2020, we were the worst leukemia program in the country. And a Chicago consulting firm had recommended shutting the program down. But we decided not to. Because we knew there'd be some people that could travel to Chicago and Indianapolis and Columbus for their care, but we'd be leaving a lot of people behind. And so we gathered together a team, nurses, nurse practitioners, social workers, pharmacists, physicians, who were dedicated to the idea that we needed a public hospital in southern Ohio that provided world-class care for leukemia and other blood cancers. 5 years on, we have gone from the very worst to one of the best in the entire country. Including a lot of people in Greene County, if they get a blood cancer, will end up in Cincinnati. And we can provide great care for them. And I've gotten a lot of credit for this turnaround. But as any of you have worked in healthcare with teams before, no. The truth is, it wasn't just me. It was the nurses who didn't leave when it got really hard 5 years ago. And it was no fun 5 years ago. It was the pharmacists who were dedicated to every patient getting the right medicine. The social workers who never let a private insurance company denial stand between a patient and the right care for their cancer. There are 3 lessons I want to take from my experience over the last 5 years in Cincinnati into politics. 1, in any long shot effort, you have to have a team. It is not just an individual. Number 2, in any uphill battle, you have to have a long-term vision and ideals so you know what you're fighting for when it gets hard. Because for a lot of Democrats in Ohio, it got very hard last fall to imagine a future for our party. Number 3, we have to have passion, persistence, and work ethic. There is no replacing that as we go about this work that we're all embarked on. Now, my wife, Jana, who's here wrestling kids, and Jana's a trauma surgeon at the University of Cincinnati. We have a 5 and a 7-year-old who are running around. We want them to have a democracy where they can use their own moral imaginations to solve the great problems of their time. Now, I am so grateful for this invitation. I'm looking forward to any questions or comments you have. But I wanted to tell you that I'm committed to a passionate, positive campaign dedicated to the hard work of building an Ohio where we do together what none of us can do alone. So with that, I'll stop and I look forward to questions or comments. Thank you, Brian.
All right, who wants to ask a question? I've got the mic. Here we go.
I don't believe the truth is the only thing on our side. The other thing that's on our side is the majority. We are the majority.
That's a fantastic point. And one thing I'll add to that is that there was a poll last July of Ohioans on whether they planned to support an independent commission drawing our districts. 55% of Ohioans planned to support an independent commission, including 40% of Republicans in that poll. And so I think you're exactly right. The idea of fair districts is not a minority opinion.
In the last presidential election, the results showed that our districts should be something like 6 to 9. They're 12 to 3. That's how they defeat a majority. That's what gerrymandering is doing to us. We have to stop it.
All right. Round of applause for that, right? Yeah. You remember issue 1 in August of 2023, the majority said hell no to giving away our right to basically govern ourselves through the citizen initiative process. So we are the majority, sorry, absolutely. All right, next question. Dan.
I came back in December from 2 years of Peace Corps service. So for the presidential election and the midterm election 2 years before that, municipal election 1 year before that, I voted by mail from North Macedonia. A lot of my fellow Peace Corps volunteers wouldn't bother voting in their home states because it required printing out a ballot, paying for international postage to mail it in. It's not an easy process. What are your thoughts, if elected, on how to improve that process for Ohioans who live overseas?
That's a great point. And, I'll start by telling everybody some things that I know you're already well aware of. Our Secretary of State over the last few years has actually been moving the opposite direction for people who live overseas, whether you're in the Peace Corps, in the military, work or volunteer overseas. And one of the ways he did that was narrowing the number of days from when a ballot is mailed to when it has to be received. When they implemented this policy in the Secretary of State's office, it caused a lot of active duty military folks to be concerned that their ballots would not be counted. As absurd as this sounds, that's actually what they did in Ohio. So number one, that was a directive out of the Secretary of State's office. It needs to be taken back. There are some things that the Secretary of State can do independent of the legislation. I think I'll leave it there. Thanks for serving in Macedonia.
I would just add, as a member of the Board of Elections, and when these changes have come down, the pipeline, I always make a point at the end when we're wrapping things up to identify exactly how many military members' votes were not counted because they arrived. And I ask them to say that number so the Republicans sitting beside me can see. So keep that in mind. Anyone else on Board of Elections?
Brian. Dr. Ham, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Representative Miller from Columbus. Just finished my fourth term of the House and ran against Mike Carey last year. We got 45%. This year we're going to get 50.1. I support Brian for Secretary of State. We need Dr. Hambley in the Secretary of State's office, making our state blue again. And I was the lead on the debate in the floor of the House, and I literally said, Secretary LaRose, how can you disenfranchise all of us who serve overseas, who are at remote and austere locations, and you just made it impossible for us to vote in our own elections? Shame on you. And that's the first time I saw Frank look down in public. It was a great day. Thanks for what you're doing. Just know that there are so many of us who've been on the front lines fighting for Democrats, for education, for mental health, for wellness, for suicide prevention. And we are with you all the way. It's going to be a great year for us in 2020.
And is it also Colonel Miller? Did I get that right? It is Colonel Miller. To Dan's question, I just have to say one thing. When you look at campaigns that do the work, as Representative Miller's campaign for Congress did last year, when you show up over and over again, because I think a lot of people knew you weren't just coming to touch a base, you were going to be back in 2 weeks and back in 8 weeks, and that's part of our strategy too.
88 counts.
88 counts.
And whatever you decide to do next, we are excited to do that together.
We might have him come back up at the end of this, but he could be our congressional candidate in green. He just showed me a map of the redraw, and we could be connected to Dublin all the way up to Columbus somehow. But yeah.
Listen, when Sherrod Brown and Governor Strickland call you and say, "Get ready for this mission," you say, "Yes, sir."
All right. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for running. My name is Dan McGregor. I moved here to Ohio from Colorado in 2020. And what I want to say is it was a real shock to me to see how different the voting systems were. In Colorado, there are drop boxes all over the place. Everybody gets a mailed, statewide gets a mail-in ballot automatically. They don't have to vote by mail, but everybody gets a ballot in the mail. There's a whole tracking process, a very advanced and well understood and studied method of voting. And I'm sure that exists in other states. So the question I want to ask you is, do you think you can take to the campaign trail data about the many things that you would like to propose for improvements in Ohio's electoral process from what the experiences have been in other states?
Great question. I'll say two things on that. One, I just want to start with a story. We were in Van Wert, And at the end of a meeting with the Van Wert County Party chair, she mentioned that their local hospital had had a particular problem. In 2020, Van Wert Regional Hospital, small rural hospital, built a new OB ward because women were having to drive to Toledo and Fort Wayne, an hour to an hour and 10 minutes to get care. In 2022, Ohio Health buys Van Wert Regional Hospital. And in 2023, on 1 day's notice, Ohio Health closes the OB ward at Van Wert Regional. And they tell the nurses they'd be reassigned at the end of the next day's shift. And the patients were given the addresses and the phone number for the Fort Wayne and Toledo OB wards. Some of these were women in their third trimester. The nurses in the OB ward at Van Wert Regional requested a meeting with their state representative in Van Wert. He wouldn't even meet with the nurses at the hospital in his town. That's what gerrymandering does. That representative knows that his political fate doesn't rest with the nurses in Van Wert. His political fate is drawn by the party bosses in Columbus when they draw his map. And if he steps out of line to advocate for women in his town, he's going to find himself drawn out of his district the next time. So that's the story to start. The second is, what can we bring from other states that would solve that problem? Virginia has an independent commission. It was a heavily gerrymandered state before they had an independent commission. Now it is one of the least gerrymandered states in the country. Virginia has showed many states that independent commissions work, they are fair, and they don't put their hands on the scale to undermine voters. We have to build a democracy that works, and we can use best practices to do that. So thanks for that question. I gotta say one more thing. Michigan also has an independent commission. I just don't bring it up as much. Yeah.
I'm actually in Jim Jordan's district in Lima, and I thank you. Thank you so much. My husband not affectionately calls him Jim Mac Jordan, but we will remain classy, I suppose. The gerrymandering, I can just want to speak to how much it affects everybody where I'm from, and Putnam County is a separate district than Allen, where I'm living. But we are in the same district somehow as Dublin, Ohio, and us. And Mansfield, there's nothing in common except for, I don't know how else to call it, but to whitewash the district and wealth wash it, honestly. Dublin is one of the wealthiest suburbs of Columbus. It's not only a suburb of Columbus, so just to throw that out there, how insane that is when you actually take a look at it, and most people from where I'm from don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So.
I can't wait for the redraw.
Yeah, me too. Yes.
Maybe one or two more? Or what do you think, Kim?
It's up to you.
Yeah, we got time for a couple more.
Hi, thanks. My question is about it's about healthcare for all Ohioans, and I've heard ideas for things like loan forgiveness for people who are in medical fields through the state colleges, so they can work in free clinics or something. Do you have any other ideas as a doctor of what might help to serve more Ohioans with medical?
I love that question so much. Thank you. Two things. One, we have got to prevent the damage that will be done by any cuts to Medicaid. Medicaid expansion was incredibly important to getting almost 1 million Ohioans access to care. And that allows clinics, doctors' offices, hospitals to thrive because they're not taking care of people in the emergency room for something that could have been fixed much cheaper and better in a clinic 3 months before. So number one is we have got to make sure that we don't lose Medicaid access for 770,000 people. Number two, how do we make this better? Whether it's expanded Medicare or expanded Medicaid access, there is no reason that someone living in Ohio should be uninsured. It's not good for their community, their hospital, but most importantly, it is not good for their own health. answer that question. Do you have any ideas? Go for it.
Ohio do a version of single payer and just lead the nation?
Well, I think we're so far from that right now, it's tough for me to imagine it. But universal health care should be the goal, and policies that move us in that direction are widely popular. And so I don't think we should cede any ground on universal care for everybody. Yeah.
Two quick things. One, thank you. Great that you're doing this. Love your program. This is what we need. Second thing is, you're going to need at least a few Republican votes given the state. How are you going to convince them that in some ways gerrymandering is worse for Republican voters than Democratic voters?
Yeah. I'll say three things on that. One, you're exactly right. It is not just Democrats who get hurt by gerrymandering. If you are a Republican politician, you are one of the very few people that benefits from gerrymandering. But if you're a Republican voter who wants the streets paved in your school, in your district, you're not helped by gerrymandering, because gerrymandering means you don't get to influence your politicians, Democrat or Republican. That's number one. Number two, how do we connect that to problems in people's lives? You know, we were in Hardin County, and we started a lot of the discussions asking people what's broke in your community. Today was a little fun because what's beautiful in your community. One of the things they said in Hardin County, of the 15 people who showed up, 12 of them said something about public schools or economic opportunities for young people so they didn't have to leave the county as soon as they graduated. As we were driving out of town in Hardin County, we drove by the public school, and the sheet metal on the top of the roof is literally blowing in the wind. This is at the same time as the Republican legislature is pushing for cuts to public education. And one more thing, Hardin County has no K through 12 private schools, so vouchers don't help anybody, Republican or Democrat, in Hardin County. And so I think we have to tell that story, because people deeply care about their schools, and there's a lot of people who are represented by Republicans who are undermining their own public schools, I believe, because of gerrymandering. John Bryant, one Gail.
Yeah, my question is, I've lived in Camp Alabama, lived here 20 years and been here. Well, I could go my license and just renew it. Now I have to prove I'm married with my birth certificate and all this other stuff. And I like that to stop.
I'll say one thing on that. So the question was about increased registration, red tape to register to vote. And whether it's the SAVE Act in Congress, or Trump's executive order on elections, or Senate Bill 153 in Ohio, well, everyone here should know that there's an effort to make it harder, particularly for married women who changed their name when they got married, to register to vote because their current name doesn't match their birth certificate. And it adds another hassle, especially for women who don't have a passport. So I can't believe we're having this debate in the United States to target a specific large group of people and make it harder for them to vote. So thanks for bringing it up, but it's an issue that Republicans have adopted nationwide. That if you're interested in being involved, there are three things you can do. One is it's a house party strategy. This is our 70th event, whether it's a house party, town hall, or now cookout.
70th?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
If you click the house party, fair warning, if you click the house party box on the sign-in, you will get an email, and we will try to do a house party in your living room. So if you sign up for that, team up with people in your neighborhood, we would love to be back in Greene County or wherever you're from. Number two, donations are always helpful, and Marcel has the information if you're interested in making a donation. Number 3, we already need volunteers to do things. And so if you sign up to volunteer, you'll be on our email list, and we'll be doing events in Dayton several times this summer. We can always use another pair of hands. That transitions me to thank you to everyone who volunteered, cooked, took pictures, set up, organized today to make it happen, and to the Greene County Democratic Party. Thank you so much. Are we gonna do like a hike and pick up trash thing? Chairman McCarthy, did you want to say something before we transition to a couple of hikes? Or
Just one short thing. Nancy here at the table, SB1 petition. If you haven't signed it, make sure you don't leave before you do.
And we have a lot of counties
A
available.
lot of counties. Test us. Test us. Come on, bring your county to us. All right, that's it. You want to talk about?
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Janet Hambley. So part of the idea of Brian's campaign is Care for Ohio, it's on our shirts. So part of our goal today was to help take care of our parks and our community spaces. So anybody that's interested, I've got a bunch of trash bags. I hear the park is actually pretty clean. If you want to go for a hike, and as you're on your way, if you see any garbage, help clean it up. That would be wonderful. And we've got garbage bags up here for you. And gloves.
should we break it? Thanks everybody for coming. If you're going to do a hike, meet Jana. Meet Jana right up here if you're interested in doing a hike. If you're not, have a great weekend. Thank you.